Hi, I'm Brian Kramer, author of Human to Human and host of Leadtail TV. Good digital is quickly becoming table stakes for any business. We sat down with Gunter Reiss, global marketing leader and digital marketing evangelist, to discuss how social media marketing fits into B2B, his playbook for CMOs in 2021, and why digital marketing is your most important challenge as a marketing leader. Please join me in my interview with Gunter Reiss. Well, it is absolutely wonderful to be with you here today. Thank you so much for joining Leadtail TV. Gunter, how wonderful to be here. Thank you so much. So I talked to you a little bit about and ask you about the unconventional kind of international career and your passion for even being a marketer. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, as you can probably tell on my accent, it's probably closer to kindergarten cop and Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I grew up in a little village outside of Vienna in Austria. And, I ended up at the end here in the Silicon Valley. And when I grew up, I read a book called Steve Jobs, the Henry Ford of the computer industry. And it was obviously translated in German. And it just inspired me. I started to work at a telecommunications company, actually, in Austria, which was responsible for Austria and Eastern Europe, as a product manager and product marketing manager on data communications product. You know, what you can tell is that I'm absolutely passionate about disruptive technologies, and I want to be a change agent and really bring these new technologies to the market. And I had the opportunity to meet the inventors of Bluetooth in Sweden. And I was like, yes, this is going to be such an ubiquitous technology. I want to be part of that. Or I led the 5G engineers back already now 7 years ago about new use cases, autonomous driven cars and smart manufacturing and smart cities. And it's really cool. But I really found my calling in the CMO role, because you can be really bold, you can be strategic, you can be creative and innovative in your approach. And so when I get up in the morning, I get just so excited to work with marketers on, how can we build more innovative ABM strategies? How can we build, some more organic and paid traffic initiatives for the website? Of course, you always want to find a balance between organic and paid, just to cover, your overall strategy and your campaign. But I had a head of digital where he was, whenever I came to the office, that was pre-COVID-19, of course, when I came to the office every day in the morning, he said, Gunter, 5G security, first page, first ranked, and that just was exciting, because it takes a lot of creativity to be always on the first page ranked. And so there is a bit of an art and a science behind our marketing job nowadays.
Well, speaking of an art and a science and how it's changing, tell me about that as a CMO and how the CMO role is actually changing.
Yeah. So this is interesting to me as well, because of course I have mostly worked in the B2B world during my entire career. But what I see right now is it is dramatically changing, because the B2B CMOs need to take notes from the B2C marketers in the digital world, especially what we have seen now over the last 1.5 years, where we are basically going through that pandemic, and digital is really becoming your most important channel, let's be honest. And according to a recent statistic, by 2025, again, we talked about millennials. Millennials will represent 40% of the US workforce. And they are going to be in decision-making roles and influencer roles if they are not already today. And they grew up as digital citizens. So they are expecting a digital experience, in the B2B world, which is similar to the B2C world. But when you really want to summarize it in for me, 5 key areas, where the CMO needs to focus on now, other than just building a high performance team around yourself, is number one, listen to the voice of the customer. Because to me, too many companies are still just marketing their own product, their own solution. It's all about, oh, we are the best, but they are ignoring just the voice of the customer. At the end, the hero is the customer. You are the guide. Like somebody said at Star Wars, it's like Luke Skywalker and Yoda. And that's really what it is. And I think the B2C world is doing a much better job a lot of times. And one of the first things when I took over the VP worldwide marketing role was bring in a dedicated person for customer advocacy, because I want to hear the voice of the customer, because you learn so much. Second for me is, and it's really undervalued, is because it's seen very often as fluffy, is brand building. And especially in the digital world, how are you going to stand out? How are you going to differentiate your offering? What's your simple messaging? What do you stand for as a company? And even going that far is, can you build actually your own category? Look at what Palo Alto Networks did. We had already many firewalls at that time. They came up as the next generation firewall. And but branding is really a big item. Content, to me, still content is king. And blogs, of course, everybody is coming up with blogs nowadays, but then have experts really sharing their knowledge with the community. And so, and it's obviously now a lot of video content which you need to create, YouTube and so on. So that's, to me, the third aspect. The fourth aspect is digital, and social. Because look, when suddenly last year in March, we shut down basically all the physical conferences and field marketing and so on, we had to shift gears. And when you look at it now, another statistic says 90% of all B2B buyers start the buying journey with Google search. I mean, look how powerful actually Google is in that sense. But it also means for you as a marketer, you have to really have to have a really good strategy around organic search and your paid search. And the website is, the most important digital entity you have, because that's where buyers go to learn and to understand who you are as a company. And then, of course, social is its own, go-to-market strategy now. You have to have social part of your strategy. It's not a B2C just kind of channel any longer. And then my last one is really, you need to be an innovator as a business developer. And of course, I bring a lot of business development experience with me, but I hosted on Fridays always a brainstorming, an ideation session around coming up with new creative out-of-the-box ABM strategies. And because you need to differentiate yourself in the market. Too many others, particularly in your specific industry, will try to come up with webinars and so on. But how are you going to differentiate? What are you going to do differently? And my last comment on that is, it's really not any longer for just bringing more leads. And I know this is not what CFOs want to hear, because you want to always say, oh yeah, I had, instead of 200 MQLs or 2000 MQLs, I had 3000 MQLs, I had 4000 MQLs. But for me, the big change is here. It is about, in the digital world, about personalized contextual conversations. And if it all comes, if you all bring this together, the 5 key areas for me of the new CMO, what does it all come down to? It all comes down to how you support the business growth of the company. If you can't do that, forget all the marketing, forget all the great initiatives you have been driving. It's just not good enough. So business growth ultimately is the measurement for you.
So what about the brand, do you think is critical for technology companies to pay attention to now and in the future? As you look at those 5 things, what's critical about branding?
Yeah. Well, when you look at the just in the technology world. Of course, we are in the Silicon Valley here. We are not in Houston, Texas, with oil and gas, or in any of the other cities where they have core industries, what they are well recognized for. I just look at the entire technology spectrum, and too many times companies just don't spend a dime on branding. They are just focusing on their product and their performance marketing. And they think that brand marketing is just fluffy, and it's just a waste of money and a waste of investment. And from my point of view, that is wrong, because in the digital world, your buyers are looking at your website. They try to understand who you are. They try to understand in the social world also who you are as a company. What is your purpose? What is your differentiation? What is your value proposition? What is your vision? What are the values, what you stand for as a company? So it's really much bigger. At the end, you as a marketer have to create a digital, not just a digital, but a unique experience. So there is an emotional component. Sometimes you call that also cognitive empathy. And so I believe that branding has just a much bigger impact on a company's business growth. And I give you a few examples. Of course, we can look at companies like Red Bull, which has almost 50% market share in the energy drink business. But of course, that's the consumer world. You could say Apple is obviously the icon, the iconic star in branding. Absolutely. But I look at a company like Verizon, and my former CEO from Ericsson, Hans Vestberg, yes, they have a consumer business, they have an enterprise business, but he has just changed, I think, the narrative. He has also up-leveled and made the company look much more modern. Look at T-Mobile. Of course, I love magenta. It's my favorite color. And they have done another great job. But then look at the cybersecurity industry at companies like CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike, who doesn't know about CrowdStrike nowadays? But and they were founded in 2011, and now they are driving more than $1 billion of ARR, and they have a market cap of $40 billion 10 years later. And I still remember going to the office, when we went to the office a year and a half ago and more, that the CEO was on CNBC in the morning talking about how CrowdStrike basically solves problems for their customers. And I love their slogan, which says basically we stop breaches. It's very simple. And there is another example. Silence, for instance, was also in the endpoint protection business, and they then got acquired by BlackBerry, but for I think $1.5 billion. And again, the company just had a fantastic AI-based cybersecurity technology, but just found a way to brand themselves to be the category leader in endpoint protection. But they came almost out of nowhere and just took advantage of being very strong in their brand, creating brand awareness and brand recognition and a brand personality. And for me, again, it's also how employees get inspired by, because you need to start, it's not just external, it's really internally also. And at A10, with the change in leadership a year and a half ago, I had decided that was a really good opportunity for a company which is 14 years old, and had phenomenal customers around the world, that we need to up level, we need to do a brand refresh. And we did that ultimately very successfully by modernizing the logo, by just changing from yellow and blue to magenta and blue. Coincident that I have the shirt today as magenta and blue, but also we revisited the entire corporate messaging framework, the slogan, everything across the board. When you people on board, I mean, it's bigger than anything in the company when you really go ahead with a brand refresh. And then people can say, wow, this just costs a lot of money. So what was the benefit from it? We saw increase in brand awareness. We saw increase in customer engagement. With iterations on the website, we saw improvements there as well as the traffic. And of course, as a CFO, you would say, oh, I want to see immediate, pipeline increase and so on. But, a lot of times these brand refreshes are medium to long term kind of have, and then they have material impact. And I think what was also interesting was for the company that, the company was perceived as legacy ADC vendor, and that brand refresh resonated so well with repositioning the company and in security, cloud, and 5G.
What's your perspective as a CMO about how you're gonna be looking at the differences between now physical versus virtual events, and how are you going to approach that in just the next few years?
Great question, Brian. It hit us really hard, I would say, back early last year when suddenly these conferences all got basically shut down after RSA, Mobile Work Congress, and so on, Cisco Live, Dell World, you name them, Oracle. I think just, we have learned to live in the digital world. We have learned to live, working from home. But it is sometimes still, I think we are still not there yet with even the virtual conference user experience. It's still a work in progress. And then don't be fooled. There are actually a lot of virtual conferencing software providers are now popping up. And very quickly, so you need to do a really good due diligence on who is providing what kind of features and functionalities, because very quickly, a virtual event could be as expensive if you host it than as a physical event. And I was shocked about that. And of course, if you tell that you're a head of finance, they go like, well, shouldn't it be cheaper? We just use a little software and then we just do the broadcast and it's easy done. It still takes a lot of manpower, I would say, to host even such of these virtual events. We hosted one at A10. It was the first ever global user conference for A10 last year. It was called A10 Transcend. And we had to do it within 4 months because I saw that it was just necessary. We always wanted to do a physical event, but now with people working from home, it was a no-brainer to do a virtual event. And the interest was absolutely stunning. The registrations were through the roof. We had and I think what was really interesting was because it was for the first time that we brought the entire community together and have them sharing openly information. So customers shared information, the experts from A10, partners shared information, analysts about their transformations, digital transformations to 5G, cloud, and security. And we even had guest speakers like Lindsey Vonn. Then we had Scott Kelly, the astronaut who spent an entire year in the International Space Station. So real transcenders. But it was just, the entire company came together around that virtual event, and it's cool. So, down the road, how do I expect now? This going to unfold? Well, in Europe, we see more COVID-19 cases popping up again here and there. So I don't think physical conferences are going to happen too much, maybe in fall, but I think we have a greater chance for 2022. And then when they will happen, then I can envision that we will have possibly almost as much attendance as physical events as we had before. But in addition, we will have all the virtual conferencing users as well. So I think we will in the future see a total hybrid world. And if you then throw in augmented reality or any of the other, virtual reality, any of the other capabilities what we are working on, conferences will never be the same.
So why do you think that a CMO is also maybe perhaps a chief community officer?
The classic buyer and seller relationship is really dead. And so it's evolving really to, you as a marketer you have to build a community. You have to build advocates. And Carter talked about the open source community. I couldn't agree more with him. This is the perfect example where and where people just share more openly information. And that brings me also to this topic of gating, because a lot of times you go to a website, you try to find out more about a company, and then the content is gated. All the important content, what you want to read, is gated. In an open source community, you want to provide content more freely, because you want to share the knowledge. You are the expert in the field. If you're the expert in the field, you don't have to worry. A lot of times as marketers, we just gate because we want to show obviously the KPIs around it. But we have to let go. We have to just let the community find easily the information, then consume it, and then obviously come back for more and more. So there is this need for creating more and more information. But I'm always a big advocate of building obviously your own community, your own community platform, your own forum. But and again, good example was hosting a virtual user conference, what I mentioned before. But we also, as marketers, need to go where our customers or our customers' customers are hanging out in these forums, in the in the open source community. It would be companies like GitHub or the Linux Foundation or others. Or if you go broader, you could say cybersecurity. You go to Black Hat conferences, or you go to Cisco Lives or Dell Worlds or others. So, and in the community, you have to be also authentic, because your customers, your people in the community will respect you when you are authentic, when you are an expert, and when you speak up. So it's not just storytelling any longer. It is really providing the community with resources and knowledge so they can solve problems, and they will come back and then purchase from you because they trust in you. So trust, to me, is so important.
I am also really interested in asking you about why social media is becoming a staple channel for B2B marketers, and how that might play out even more so in the future.
A lot of senior executives do still not understand the power of social in the B2B world. They still think it's B2C. And I also believe that the traditional funnel is really obsolete, because the new buyer is looking to peer recommendations. They are looking to their colleagues. There is a much bigger network of their own community they have created, and they might not be in the awareness stage. They might not be in the consideration stage. They might be in one of those, but it's, and so they gather information and then they make decisions. And so there is another statistic which says that 84% of corporate buyers are actually leveraging social media for their buying decision, which is massive. And then, I just looked it up recently, which was LinkedIn has more than 660 million, users today, and it is used by 9 out of 10 B2B companies for business engagements. Twitter is a bit smaller with roughly 200 million active users, but still almost 8 out of 10 B2B companies are now using Twitter as well for business.
Well, I could sit and talk to you all day about this stuff, and we've covered quite a bit. I want to close out with something that I know is a huge passion of yours, which is corporate social responsibility, CSR. It's it's something that is a critical element of what we do. I'd love to know why you feel that it's critical as an element of marketing, and especially in a B2B element for what we're doing in brands and at companies today.
No, thank you, and thanks for bringing this up, because it is really close to my heart. In the marketing world, we call it cause marketing, where basically businesses align themselves with social issues. And social. I feel as a marketer, as a CMO, you need to be able to speak up on social issues, on society issues, on challenges. It's a moral imperative, as I see it, and it's not just B2C. It's in the B2B world, and I think I see it too often that CEOs sometimes, just then post something when they feel peer pressure, when they suddenly see, oh, wow, this other company has been basically publicly talking about this as well. And so there is a lot of, there's a big evolution still in front of us. And it was, from my perspective, quite heartwarming to see corporations even now allocating financial resources behind addressing racial discrimination, like the Asian American hate crime, what we saw, or the African American racial injustice associated with George Floyd or Breonna Taylor. And so I think, it's good. I do think we are going a long way here, and we're getting closer. I think, again, millennials, I think, there's a statistic, probably more than 80% now, that they say they see it important that companies make, commit publicly to support corporate social responsibility. And so I know a lot of times it's seen as it's taking away some of the profitability from a company. But at the end, there is another, I think, study from one of the consulting companies, which says that companies who actually are actively supporting corporate social responsibility are more profitable, which is interesting. And then there's I love statistics, as you can see. I'm a data guy too. Is and this is the closest to my wife and myself's heart, is that there women just account for 18% of computer science graduates. That's not a lot. And so for that reason, my wife and I are really passionate about bringing the, or helping the gender gap in technology and IT, and bringing more girls to STEM programs. And at A10, I initiated an initiative with the Lindsay Vonn Foundation. Again, Lindsay Vonn coming up, because her organization is really very active in bringing young girls from underrepresented communities to some of these STEM programs to learn robotics or Python programming, Java programming, even some fun stuff like video gaming development. Companies like ID Tech and others are offering these kind of programs. And that's just, it just is so inspiring to see these young women who otherwise would have never had the chance, to go and attend a $400 or $1,000, STEM program like that and learn robotics is it's just cool. It's absolutely cool. And I truly believe that, over the next decade, that companies who are investing into corporate social responsibility and do social good, they will stand out. And the community, again, going back to the community will recognize these values. And you should not see it from a profitability point of view. You should just see it as, if you're successful as a company, I think you have a mandate to do social good.
Gunter, thank you so much for being on Leadtail TV and sharing all of this. We covered quite a bit in a short amount of time, and as anybody who's listening or watching can see, it's just the scratching of the surface. So I hope they'll research you, look for you, find you, and see all the other fun things that you're up to and can do, and all the, the data points are just the beginning, because I can tell you've got loads of them back there. So
thank you. Thanks so much, Brian. I really appreciated being on Leadtail TV for the first time. And as Scott Kelly the astronaut said to if you can dream it, you can do it.